Hi, and welcome back to our Ask the Agronomist video series. I am Phil Long, Precision Agronomy Advisor with Latham High-Tech Seeds. And this week we're going to be talking about the obvious. So kind of poor, pathetic looking corn and soybean plants out there as what we're dealing with in the 2022 season so far. So we're going to explore that a little bit. And I want to start off with some of the facts. We always talk about GDUs, especially for corn. I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically to Iowa right now, but applies really to whole Latham Country. I'm just using Iowa numbers, but GDUs in terms of Iowa right now, we're not too far off from normal, really, maybe a touch behind, but in general, we're not too far off from the 5-year average. But if you look at the month of May, and you look at the temperatures that we saw in the month of May, we had roughly 2 weeks that were below average temperatures. Nighttime and daytime temperatures were below average. We had here right before Memorial Day, we had low temperatures in the 40s at night, and temperatures in the day in the 60s, depending on where you're at, even in the 50s. So these temperatures make it really tough for corn to grow. It's not accumulating a lot of GDUs. It's not moving very quickly. The other thing I want to take a look at is our crop progress reports. That gives you another side of the story, a telling part of the story. If you look in terms of crops, the planting progress, we were right on par last week here at the end of May. But if you look at emerged on both corn and soybeans, we're about 5% behind the average. On the corn and soybeans both, we're about 5% behind in terms of emergence. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells us that things are growing really slowly. So just like we're seeing out in the field, we're seeing tough conditions. That's reflected in those reports. I want to move on and talk a little bit about the growth stage. That also plays a part in this. We talk about this every year, but this is the perfect time to look at corn, especially. You can see here I got a corn plant. It's a V3 plant. There's the first true leaf there. If you're scouting, that first true leaf is always rounded at the tip. The rest of them are going to be pointed. We got that 1, 2, and 3 here with collars. This fourth one doesn't quite have a collar, but it probably will in another day or so. So it's almost a V4 plant. This is the perfect time to look at it because you can dig it up, you can find the planting dip, still find that seed easily, and you can see those different root systems. So you can see here above my hand is the seedling root system, the seminal root system. So you got the corn seed and then the roots coming off of that. That sustains this plant up until about this time, around V3 or so. You can see these nodal roots coming below my hand, coming out now really strong. Those are really, this is the transition phase. These are starting to take over now and provide nutrients. So it's a bigger root system. Obviously, it's going to sustain and anchor that plant for the rest of the season. But in that transition or that intermediary is when we see these tough conditions, because you're still getting supply mainly from the seminal root system until it transitions to that nodal root system. So we see yellowing, we see purpling, I've heard in a lot of cases. Just spindly, small looking plants, which are related to a lot of these temperature issues we're seeing, cloudy days. A lot of these conditions that we're seeing are causing the reflectance in the plants. We can see purpling a lot of times as phosphorus issues. Could be your fertility, or it could just be the root system. It's slow growing, cool soil temps as well. Followed a lot of these weather patterns, obviously. So the root systems are growing slow as well, and that affects that. As the roots expand and grow more, they explore more of that soil and explore more of that soil that has nutrients and phosphorus and sulfur and nitrogen, all these things that affect how this corn plant looks. I want to talk just a second about soybeans. On the soybean side, we're anywhere from VE, so emergence. Maybe you have 2 little cotyledons sticking out. Maybe you have a unifoliate leaf, and maybe you have a start of the first trifoliate, or V1 it would be. Most areas are somewhere between there, but we're really all over the board, and some areas are still planting. So at this point, especially if we're getting warm conditions, this week does not look terribly warm for us, but things should pop out of the ground pretty quickly. In terms of soybean growth and development, they're also in that awkward phase. I talk about it just like with corn. Soybeans do the same thing, except it's trying to establish that relationship with the nodules on the root so that it can get nitrogen. That's why it looks a little yellow and goofy early season until it hits about V1, V2 or so. The first 30 or so days after it comes out of the ground, it's going to look a little off, I guess you could say. You know, maybe not its true self, but it'll eventually get that nitrogen provided by those nodules and start that association and make up the difference and start really growing. So we're on the cusp of things growing really quickly. Right now, things just look a little tough. Even have tattered leaves here from the windstorm here just yesterday, but just a tough start to the 2022 season. That's where we're at. Things are really hopefully going to start taking off real soon here. But as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at 1-877-GO-LATHAM or visit us on our website at lathamseeds.com. And thanks again for watching this week's Ask the Agronomist.